Good evening. This is QTV Nightly News coming to you from our studios on Keraba Avenue, and I am Asma Oba. Thanks for joining us. Here are the main news headlines. The Vice President of the Gambia, Mohamed B.S. Jallow, has underscored government's resolve to address the high cost of living in the country. Residents of Bijilo inaugurated their newly built central mosque on Friday to address the increasing demand for space to worship by the growing Muslim population in the area. The National Malaria Control Program of the Ministry of Health and partners held a consultation forum ahead of the commemoration of World Malaria Day next month. A discussion forum on the effects of FGM and the consequences of those who violate the law was organized at Kerawan in the North Bank region. In international news, as the world is reportedly witnessing the highest number of violent conflicts since World War II, we looked at how the work of the UN Security Council has been paralyzed by the geopolitical considerations of its permanent members. Now, those and other stories coming up, so stay tuned. Thank you for being with us. Now, during an interview with QTV's Jennifer Sonko, the Vice President of the Gambia, Mohamed B.S. Jallow, has underscored government's resolve to address the high cost of living in the country.
African countries are facing increased cost of living, including the Gambia, due to rising food and energy prices amid inflation and increasing debt. This is affecting and exposing vulnerable communities to poverty. Data from the 2020-2021 household survey showed that more than half of Gambians, 53.4% of 1.1 million, are poor. The Gambia is a tax-based economy, leaving the economy with meager resources to distribute to competing sectors. What is the stance of the Gambia government on the high cost of living? Here is Vice President Mohamed B.S. Jallow.
We have recently had a business council meeting with them, and we are aware that yes, due to the for example, we keep talking about the Ukraine war, we talk about the COVID, because they are still affecting what is happening globally. But when you compare with other countries, you realize actually Gambia is doing far better. The government, in fact, is trying to hold inflation down. Right now, you'll see in the Gambia, inflation is hovering around 17%. But in many neighboring countries, inflation goes as much as 40 to 50%.
The Gambia government is opening its doors to the private sector to handle major aspects of the economy. For example, in February, the president launched the Gambia's premier private ground handling company, providing all-inclusive airport ground handling services. Is the Gambia open to more of these investments?
The role of government is to provide the environment for the private sector. And you have mentioned examples whereby most of us, when we travel, we encourage Gambians to come back and invest. So it is in our interest to make sure that those things are happening and people are seeing it, so that will encourage the Gambian diaspora to come. Some of them, are investing in other countries. If you are investing in the US or in Europe, why not come and invest in the Gambia?
In recent months, there has been a surge in boats leaving the Gambia carrying migrants to Europe. According to Vice President Jallow, we should continue to sensitize considering these trends.
What government can do is just to sensitize people, because sometimes it's very difficult. If you say you are struggling, but then somebody who sells his house, somebody who sells his cows, to go. So what can you say to that person? Because people are going to come and build a house. You have already built a house and you sell it to go. So what can government say to you? Just to tell you that what you expect on the other side is not there. All right. So we are also, elated that some people who are coming back and get into business, can be a source of motivation for others.
As part of efforts to ensure public service delivery, the Gambia government launched the Delivery Forum for cabinet ministers and public institutions to relate to the president their successes and challenges. As the respective ministers subsequently update the public, hopefully the forum will enhance understanding to ensure distribution of our meager resources are managed sustainably. Reporting for QTV News, I am Jennifer Sonko.
Residents of Bijilo inaugurated their newly built central mosque on Friday. This development has addressed the increasing demand for space to worship by growing Muslims population in the area, whose united efforts mobilize funds to construct the mosque. Mudulamin Choi has more.
Muslims are being called to prayer and respond in large numbers. Standing tall, solid and magnificent is the Central Mosque of Bijilo, a newly constructed sacred place of worship in the West Coast region. The mosque is being inaugurated on Friday, a day when Muslims gather for congregational worship. The worshippers pray and rejoice to their Creator for blessing them with this enormous accomplishment in the holy month of Ramadan. Joining them to lead the Friday prayer is the Imam Ratib of Banjul, Alhaji Cherno Aliu Maska. The newly constructed mosque marks the end of a long journey in the struggle by the people of Bijilo, who are united in Islam with a common vision for a central and sacred place of worship. Kofi Fall and Dr. Babukar Sar, the president of the Bijilo Central Mosque Foundation and the Secretary General of Bijilo Central Mosque, respectively, share their feelings about this crucial achievement.
Before, our parents were trekking from here to Sukuta. By then there was no mosque. But with the support of the community and Dr. Babukar Sar, we were able to achieve this monument. From the Qatari embassy right to this place, QCell, Mohammed Jah.
Which is a very significant religious, spiritual investment. Is something that everybody appreciates, and I think that explains the huge turnout that we've seen today. That explains the fact that the Imam Ratib of the Gambia is the one who led the prayers today, and it's also a good example of a community, a communal sort of effort.
The people of Bijilo were not alone in their quest to construct this new mosque. Philanthropists and their families and loved ones in the diaspora provided them with the required support for the mosque project. Usman Dao, a native of Bijilo, is one of those who was actively involved in the construction of the mosque.
As we started, it started locally. Locally within the locals in this community, everybody started paying $20 and $100. That's how the mosque started. And from there, it went to us in the diaspora, getting together, like the youths from Bijilo. From the diaspora is where we started. We supported and different people came in and helped. But especially the CEO of QCell, Mohammed, I came with Mohammed here when this place was under construction. And he was very impressed with what he has seen. And that day he wrote a check of $400,000 and he said, Usman, I'm part of this committee from now on.
In Islam, the construction of a mosque comes with a hugely significant reward. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is reported to have said that, quote, "Whoever builds a mosque for the sake of Allah, like a sparrow's nest for Allah, or even smaller, Allah will build for him a house in paradise." End of quote. Mahmoud Lamin Choi, QTV News.
The National Malaria Control Program of the Ministry of Health and partners held a consultation forum on Wednesday ahead of the commemoration of World Malaria Day next month. Julian Jai attended and she filed this report.
Every year, the global malaria community commemorates World Malaria Day on April 25th to serve as an advocacy for governments' global partners to renew their political commitment towards malaria prevention and control. And the Gambia's Ministry of Health joins the wall to observe the day. Some of the Health Ministry's activities for this year will include a symposium, press briefings, radio and television panel discussions, and an open field day convergence, amongst others. According to the U.S. President's Malaria Initiative, despite major achievements in reducing cases and deaths from malaria in the Gambia, the disease is still a threat to the country's over 2 million people, even though the annual national malaria incidence declined by 70% from 149 per 1,000 people in 2011 to 44 per 1,000 people in 2022. Since 2015, the Gambia has been one of the few African countries to have achieved the Global Technical Strategy goal of 40% reduction in malaria case incidence by 2020. Transmission occurs in the Gambia every year, with about 90% of cases occurring in the later stages of the country's annual rainy season from September to December. Here is Olima Tukoli, Senior Program Officer at the Malaria Control Program, on the progress Gambia has made in malaria eradication.
we are saying we want to have 0 malaria deaths by 2025. And 2025 is around the corner. However, MRC is here. They can attest that we are able to reduce malaria to at least more than 50%. And working with all stakeholders, I'm pretty sure we will one day be one of the countries that will eliminate malaria. So if we all work together if we all collaborate as rollback malaria partners, I think we'll be able to eradicate malaria also in the Gambia.
Mamadou Njat, head of vector biology and malaria laboratory at MRC Gambia, also has this to say.
I think from now what I'm going to do is to inform them about the situation, so how we can try to join all our resources to make it bigger, so to make it also a success. I have no doubt that they will be, the unit will participate to these activities.
In a groundbreaking development in January of this year, Cabo Verde secured its status as a malaria-free nation, marking a historic strike in the global battle against the disease. This achievement places Cabo Verde as only the 3rd country in the WHO African region to attain this certification, following Mauritius in 1973 and Algeria in 2019. Also, in a significant step towards reducing the over-reliance on imported drugs and strengthening Africa's self-sufficiency in providing essential healthcare solutions, a Kenyan pharmaceutical company, Universal Corporation Limited, has become the first manufacturer in Africa to receive WHO approval to produce a life-saving anti-malaria drug. For QTV News, I am Julden Yai.
We will now go for a commercial break, but when we return, we have more stories for you. Don't go away.
The future is now with QCell's 5G network. Experience speeds like never before with our new 5G Rocket Fixed Internet plan. Get speeds from 10 Mbps to 100 Mbps. Your 5G-enabled device. Walk into QCell headquarters to get one of our 5G routers and experience the true feeling of 5G. Only with QCell. QCell brings you the future. Tech, innovation, incredible speed. The future is now. For more information, call our customer care on 111. QCell, Sunyapus. We innovate, others follow. Terms and conditions apply.
The art of juggling is a true spectacle of agility, coordination, and speed. A symbol of progression, precision, and mastery. "5G speed is like having the juggler in your pocket. With lightning-fast download and upload speeds, you'll easily be able to juggle even the busiest workdays. Whether you're a busy entrepreneur, a creative, or just someone who wants to stay connected. Juggle your tasks with ease with QCell 5G speed. The future is here. It's fast, reliable, and efficient. First brought to you by QCell. We innovate, others follow.
Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, you're watching QTV News, and I am Asma Uba. Now, a discussion forum on the effects of FGM and the consequences of those who violate the law was organized at Kerewan in the North Bank region. Our QTV regional reporter Don Williams was there, and he now reports.
The End FGM European Network is a European umbrella network of 39 organizations working to ensure sustainable European action to end female genital mutilation. At Kerewan in the North Bank region, during a one-day discussion, Yaya Demba, the coordinator and organizer of the Global Media Campaign activity, explained the purpose of their gathering.
Sometimes we don't want to share our problems, we don't want to share our issues, or we don't want to talk about them, but they are issues that we are facing day and night. Sometimes when I post things like FGM, some people will be like, I am suffering from this. So it means whether people are discussing this outside or not, we are still suffering.
Amy Bob, a midwife at the South District Hospital, shared some effect of the practice on women and girls.
We have seen that this practice has a lot of negative impact on women. The first challenge that women experience is pain, and another challenge that women experience is infection, because the practice is done in unhygienic conditions, so many people get infections from it.
So, infection.
Abdulai Sonko, the child welfare officer, K1 police station, explained that part of their work is to enforce already established laws of the Gambia and reminded the gathering about the Women's Act.
The Women Act in this act referred to as the Principal Act is amended as set out in this act. The Principal Act is amended by inserting immediately after Section 32 the following new section, Section 32A, prohibition of female circumcision. 1. A person shall not engage in female circumcision. 2. A person who engaged in female circumcision commits an offense and is liable on conviction. A. To imprisonment for a term of 3 years or a fine of $50,000 or to both. B. Where female circumcision causes death, to life imprisonment.
Ya Aissatou Jallow, a resident from Toroba village in Arc Contribution, also spoke.
This culture is harmful and it disturbs so many people. People are now realizing the negative impact it has had on women. Even in places where the practice is regarded as a culture, it has been greatly minimized because of the consequences, especially during childbirth. It is not worth doing because it is not an obligation.
All those gathered agreed that FGM cutting should not be politicized and that it should be something that unites rather than divides us, and that we must collaborate and fight its eradication to protect our girls and women. Don Williams, QTV News, K1.
That story by Don Williams will take us to international news in a moment. The world is reportedly witnessing its highest number of violent conflicts since World War II. Amidst deepening insecurity, the UN Security Council has been blamed for failing in its mandate to maintain international peace and security. QTV's Mamadou Lamin Choi looks at how the work of the UN Security Council has been paralyzed by the geopolitical considerations of its permanent members.
Increasing threats to peace and security have raised global alarm of the urgent need for action. In its most recent Armed Conflict Survey report, the London-based International Institute for Strategic Studies documents 183 conflicts in 2023. This is reported to be the highest number in 3 decades. In February this year, while addressing the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, warned, quote, "Rarely has humanity faced so many rapidly spiraling crises," he said, noting that 55 conflicts around the world are battering people's lives, destroying economies, and profoundly damaging human rights by subjecting millions of people to widespread violations and upending hopes for multilateral solutions. In the current climate of global insecurity, 2 billion people, that is a quarter of humanity, live in places affected by violent conflicts, leading to tens of thousands of lives lost and millions displaced. This pervasive insecurity predicament is a key inflection point of history, according to Amina J. Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General of the UN. Preventing such crises was the basis for establishing the United Nations more than 78 years ago, following the end of the Second World War. The UN was formed with 6 principal organs, one of which is the UN Security Council, composed of 15 member countries, 5 of whom, that is China, France, UK, US, and Russia, occupy permanent seats with veto power. The rest of the members are elected by the General Assembly with a 2-year mandate. The powers of the Council as outlined in the UN Charter include establishing peacekeeping operations, enacting international sanctions, admitting new members, and authorizing military action in conflicts on behalf of the UN member states. As the UN's crisis management body, it is the only United Nations organ empowered to impose legally binding resolutions on the 193 UN member states to maintain peace. Nonetheless, the Council is often branded as dysfunctional and anachronistic due to the current configuration of its structure, in that any of the 5 permanent member states with veto power can block resolutions to keep the peace anywhere. William Ruto, Kenya's president, is one of those unhappy about the current structure of the UN Security Council.
If any confirmation was ever needed that the United Nations Security Council is dysfunctional, undemocratic, non-inclusive, unrepresentative, and therefore incapable of delivering meaningful progress in our world as presently constituted,
the status quo presents a major stumbling block in the UN's mandate to address humanitarian crises such as violent conflicts, arms proliferation, terrorism, and climate change-related disasters. The 5 permanent members are accused of being divided and undermined by national and geopolitical interests. Here is Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Turkey's president, speaking at the 78th session of the UN General Assembly.
The Security Council has ceased to be the guarantor of world security and has become a battleground for the political strategies of only 5 countries.
Has the UN Security Council lost its clout given the current realities? Its failures to pass resolutions to end the Israel-Gaza conflict is often cited as a recent case study. Since the conflict escalated in October last year, the Council has voted on 9 draft resolutions, with only 2 being adopted. For 6 months, the Council was paralyzed by vetoes from its permanent members until this week, when it voted through resolution for a ceasefire in Gaza. This comes at a time when the conflict has recorded 32,000 Palestinians killed and 73,000 injured, most of whom are women and children, according to figures from the Palestinian Health Authority. Antonio Guterres is the UN Secretary General.
Our world is in peril and paralyzed. Geopolitical divides are undermining the work of the Security Council, undermining international law, undermining trust and people's faith in democratic institutions, undermining all forms of international cooperation. We cannot go on like this.
Many world leaders share the view of the UN Secretary General. The disturbing truth for many is that the UN Security Council, the world's primary institution to deal with war, is not working. This ineffectiveness of the Council has reignited the debates about the need to admit new permanent members to the Security Council and about restrictions on the use of the veto. This seems unlikely, as for these long sought after reforms to happen, all the 5 permanent members must agree. Mahmoud Lamin Choi, QTV News.
Also in international news, Mediterranean rescuers are facing new challenges and obstacles in their efforts to save those in need. Thousands of migrants hang in the balance as rescue efforts are being hindered by new constraints. Lolem Camara takes a closer look at this development.
With stricter laws and regulations, rescue operations are becoming more difficult and restricted, making it harder for aid workers to carry out their life-saving missions. The Mediterranean has long been known as one of the deadliest migration routes in the world, with thousands of people dying while attempting to cross in search of a better life. Yet, new constraints imposed on rescue organizations have made it even more difficult for migrants to be saved. In 8 years since the so-called migrant crisis of 2015, EU ships have halted nearly all operations in the search and rescue zones between the southern coast of Europe and the coast of North Africa. Ships like the Life Support have taken their place. Italy has also tried to stop several migrant rescue NGOs vessels from docking in their ports and implemented new laws to limit the number of humanitarian visas issued. This has resulted in a significant decrease in the number of migrants arriving in Italy and has sparked controversy and criticism from human rights organizations. However, the Italian government argues that these measures are necessary to control immigration and protect their citizens. The International Organization for Migration also estimates that the death rate for migrants crossing the Mediterranean Sea has increased from 1 in 50 in 2017 to 1 in 27 in 2020. These constraints, including criminalizing rescue efforts and preventing ships from docking in European ports, have been criticized by human rights organizations as inhuman and a violation of international law. According to the International Organization for Migration, IOM, over 4,500 migrants left the Gambia in 2021 through the Mediterranean Sea. This is a significant increase from the 2,400 migrants who made the journey in 2020. The Gambia is one of the top countries in Africa for migration to Europe, with many people risking their lives on dangerous journeys to Europe. In a case over this weekend, several would-be migrants were arrested by the Gambia's immigration forces, among them some Bangladeshi nationals. Despite these challenges, many young people continue to embark on dangerous journeys to Europe. The dangers of the journey remain real, and the rescuers will not always be there. However, recent events indicate that a lack of assistance will make the Mediterranean an even more hazardous and deadly route for those seeking this way to a better future. For QTV News, Lolly M. Kamara.
I'm afraid that's all we have for you in this news bulletin. Join us tomorrow at 8 p.m. for another bulletin. Thanks for watching and have a great evening.